Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto was reborn as the last Senju heir, and Tsunade left him behind? Part 2. I am immensely proud to say that my new project of irritating the teachers was a grand success. My homeroom sensei Ayako Moguma was pulling his hairs out trying to deal with me. Within the next few months, I have established myself as a bundle of trouble and my popularity in my class was diminishing day by day. But, there were a few hitches though. After 2 weeks of my continuous late arrival, Hiruzen questioned Bawako why I was always late to school. Bawako was justifiably bewildered by the news, and when she asked me whether any issues were there, I replied to her by saying that I was having the greatest time of my life. Like the dutiful housewife, she recited my answer to Hiruzen, who looked shocked to hear it. He looked confused for a few moments before stating that as long as my grades didn't drop he didn't have time to worry about it. Apart from Hiruzen, there was someone else surprised by the number of complaints on me, Danzo. A week after Hiruzen's interrogation, my stalker, who was absent after my enrollment into the academy, returned to his duty. I was gazing at the village from my favorite spot just before going to the academy when I felt the telltale prickle of someone watching me from distance. But he didn't catch me off guard because I was expecting something like this to happen. Desserts. Honestly, I was surprised it took him this long to send someone to stalk me. But, I didn't deviate from my routine though. I stayed true to my routine and I could feel someone watching me until I took my seat after delivering one of Kakashi-esque excuse. The feeling persisted for a week before it stopped altogether. As even the complaints to my guardian failed to make me come to the academy on time, Ayako-sensei began to get frustrated with me. While he didn't punish me outright, he made his displeasure known by snubbing me on more than one occasion in class. Like the ducklings they are, the kids followed Ayako-sensei's example and began to think of me as an inept individual. Pretty soon, I became the disgrace of the renowned Senju clan. While the events were progressing as I had anticipated, I forgot to take another major factor into account. The Naras. The 3 Naras in my classroom were absolutely pissed with me. Initially, they thought that I would drop the charade after a few weeks. But, when I continued to keep up with the charade even after accomplishing what I wanted, they became absolutely livid. Let me tell you, an angry Nara is a nightmare to deal with, and I had 3 angry Naras vying for me. Seriously, what else could I expect? I was encroaching on their territory now. Hoodwinking the teachers is a time-honored tradition of Naras. And not only was I encroaching on their territory, I was one-upping them on their own game. Justifiably, the Naras were pissed off with me. They were so pissed off with me that the trio even troubled themselves to come up and confront me. Oi Senju Baka, you are making us look bad, Harami Nara yelled at me during lunch one day. I looked up from my lunch box after finishing the last bite of the lunch Bawako had made for me. The spot I was occupying was a little away from all the kids as I preferred solitude to mingling with a bunch of rowdy kids. Anime and manga. Nuki and Soyoto stood beside her in their customary slouch, eyeing me lazily. Ah, Harami-chan, I don't know what you are talking about, I lied through my teeth with a fake smile plastered on my face. I saw her eye twitch in annoyance. Troublesome, Soyoto muttered, stifling a yawn. He is doing it purposefully. I am gonna take a nap. You coming? He asked Nuki. Yeah, he is too troublesome, Nuki replied as they both slouched off with their Nara gait towards their preferred shade for an afternoon nap. Baka, stop coming late. Harami wasn't ready to drop the matter though. Harami was the typical Nara. Even more so than Nuki and Soyoto. She was constantly vying for the dead last position in the class. Her grades were borderline passing and she took every opportunity to nap during the class. I can understand how my shenanigans were being a personal affront to her. TCH, it will be troublesome, I replied, closing my lunch box. You. Tem. And then she launched at me with a furious growl, completely taking me by surprise. There was no finesse in her technique. She was scratching and clawing at my face. I desperately tried to keep her away. Oi, Nuki. Soyoto. Get her off me. I hollered at the duo napping in the nearby shade. Nuki opened his eyes and looked at Harami, trying to scratch my face before muttering troublesome and turning around. I gawked at him and would have yelled at the duo if not for Harami suddenly biting my hand. Ouch. My cry of pain brought the attention of other kids who were playing after their lunch nearby. Pretty soon, a crowd was formed around and the kids started cheering Harami on. I tried desperately to keep her from scratching my face or biting my hand. But a furious Nara was not someone who was easily deterred. As I was concentrating on her hands and mouth, she suddenly kneed me in the groin, causing a collective, ouch, to elicit from the watching mob. For my part, I bit my lips in pain and stifled a groan. Realizing that she wasn't going to stop with a single knee, I pushed her away as hard as possible. Utilizing the millisecond gap in my defense, the little devil scratched my face with her nails before I pushed her away. I hastily got up and tried to flee, only for the banshee to let out a furious growl and latch onto my back. I desperately tried to stop her from putting another scratch on my face, all the while struggling to stay steady. It was to this scene Ayako-sensei arrived. He hastily pulled Harami off me and reprimanded her. Unfortunately, Harami was too furious to listen to sensei as she desperately tried to wriggle free from his grip and get to me. I scrambled away from the little demon and gasped for breath. It took Ayako-sensei 5 whole minutes to calm down Harami, and even after that, I wasn't letting my guard down. He announced detention for both of us and took me to the hospital. Harami was still giving me the stink eye when sensei escorted me to the hospital. In a childish fit of rage, I stuck my tongue at her from sensei's back, causing her to start throwing stones at me. Luckily, sensei took me away before any of those stones could reach me. For a little girl, Harami had a scary sense of accuracy. If not for sensei, I was sure that I would have gotten a broken head before I was rushed to the hospital. Harami's detention was doubled to my satisfaction though. And that's how the rivalry between me and Harami Nara began. If not for her, I am sure my academy days would have been boring to an extreme extent. Before the day ended, me and Harami were the talk of the academy. No one has seen a Nara lose cool like that before. Every Yamanaka and Akamichi in the school were looking at me like I was a dead man walking when I returned from the hospital. The Naras though, they saluted me while I walked past them. It was a strange sense of camaraderie for sure. I get where their respect for me came from. I managed to legitimately piss off a Nara and made them get off their lazy ass and attack me. And the fact that the Nara was the first aggressor made it even better. That was an accomplishment worthy of respect in their eyes. Visual art and design. The effect of my scuffle with Harami didn't just stop there. That evening when Bawako asked me what happened, I told her the truth. She gave a dry chuckle and told me to lie better next time. But, when Asuma returned home and told Bawako about the story of a Senju and Nara brawling in the academy grounds like rabid dogs, Bawako looked torn between amusement and exasperation. Oh Haterama-kun, what have gotten yourself into? A rivalry with a Nara. That too a Nara woman. You are in big trouble, my boy, she said after composing herself. My reply was just a scowl. But, the surprises didn't stop there. That night, as we were having dinner, Hiruzen walked into the house with a guest in tow. Shikaku Nara was every bit the lazy bum portrayed in the series. From his slouch to eye contact, everything about the man was screaming lazy to the onlooker. But there was a deep intelligence lurking behind those lazy eyes when he held my eye. I hear that you have made yourself the enemy of a Nara woman, my condolences, he drawled, causing Asuma and Bawako to erupt in laughter. Hiruzen, for his part, looked amused by the events. I had a big fat scowl on my face. TCH, Troublesome, I replied. Hiruzen erupted into full-blown laughter. I watched Shikaku's eyes twitch for a second before his lazy demeanor returned. Troublesome brat, he muttered before looking at me with a devious smirk. By any chance, do you know to play shogi? He asked me. My eyebrows rose. Let me tell you, with my severe visage and silver mangy hair I cut an imposing figure when I raise my eyebrows, even if I am just 6. I know it for a fact because I had tried it in front of a mirror just for the effect countless times. If Shikaku's mouth twitch was any indication, I am sure it was a success in this instant too. Just that the man was too lazy to even show surprise on his face. I am sure I can learn the rules if you can teach me, I said in reply. Ma. Shikaku scratched his head lazily. Hokage-sama can teach you the rules. I will play you some other time, he said before taking his leave from Hiruzen and Bawako. I stood there with my face twitching in annoyance. I didn't know whether the man had purposefully asked whether I know to play shogi or just he was too lazy to explain me the rules. Nevertheless, I chalked it up as Shikaku -1, Haterama 0. Hiruzen watched me calm down myself with amusement etched across his face. When I finally sat down for dinner, Hiruzen gave the only advice he was willing to offer me. Never ever think you have them at a disadvantage when dealing with Naris, he said sagely before lighting his pipe and exhaling a smoke cloud, all the while a small smile playing across his mouth. I nodded in acceptance. As the days progressed into months, I settled into a comfortable rhythm in my rivalry with Harami. Even Nuki and Soyoto took a step back and let us duke it out. Our rivalry was centered around the concept of who would hoodwink Ayako-sensei more. We never competed on the same front. She had her methods, I had mine. There was an unspoken rule of not using each other's methods because that would be just boring and easily identifiable. Standardized and admissions tests. Whatever you may say, Ayako-sensei was also a shinobi. A chunin in fact. So, making it obvious would get us caught. Neither of us wanted that. That gave me the nudge I needed to let my mind go on a full drive in thinking up creative concepts to hoodwink sensei. But all through it, I never dropped my grades though. It would be easy to do and I could even manage it in such a way that I could get away with it. But, I had another major concern lurking in the back of my mind. I had already ruffled Danzo's feathers with my Kakashi-esque act. I don't know what that man would do if I dropped my grades too. And I was not willing to find out either. So, I maintained my grades in the middle of the class, drawing as much attention away from me as possible and all the while feuding with Harami. I have to hand it to her though. The little demon gave me a run for my money. She kept me up on my toes and she was the perfect fuel for my power. Apart from the Naris and one Yamanaka in our class, none of them suspected our under-the-radar feud. According to the class, me and Harami hated each other and can't stand one another. Contrary to that belief, I think Harami was the only friend I had in the class. It was a strange sort of friendship for sure. Because no one understood me better than her. Yes, we were rivals. But, we also looked out for each other. If someone was too violent with Harami during our taijutsu spars, the next time I faced them I would beat them into the ground with no regret. Likewise, if any girl was too rude to me on any occasion, Harami would take the next opportunity presented to her to rip her into pieces. We also had an unspoken accord. I will deal with the boys and she will deal with the girls. Neither of us enjoyed dealing with the opposite gender and neither of us wanted help if there was a problem with the same gender. The exception to this rule was my animosity with the Uchihas. The Hyugas and the rest of the self-important pricks in the class had now started to ignore me altogether. But, the Uchihas was a different matter altogether. We came from two clans that were feuding for far longer than anyone could remember. Naturally, we were going to be like fire and water. So, Harami respected it and left me to deal with them. But, the thing is that I wasn't playing their dominance game. I usually avoided all contact with them. How much ever I may loathe the self-important pricks in my class, a clash between the lone Senju in Konoha and Uchihas would be an invitation for Danzo to get involved. And I will be damned if I gave him any edge just because I couldn't hold my temper when dealing with little kids. In short, my academy life was rolling smoothly when the inevitable happened. One fine day, all the residents of Konoha were called into the square in front of Hokage's office, and 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen announced the official start of the Third Shinobi World War. And I was sure that I didn't imagine the small glint of triumph that flashed across Danzo's eyes when the announcement was made. I honestly didn't know why Konoha even went to war with Iwa at the start of Third Shinobi World War. It was not as if the Land of Grass had any strategic value to Konoha. The Land of Fire was vast and had a good amount of resources to sustain Konoha without the land in Kusa. From what I could gather, the official reason for Konoha going to war with Iwa was that we were trying to stop Iwa from encroaching Kusa. While having Kusa as a neighbor was fine with Konoha, they were not willing to have Iwa as a neighbor. Because of the tension between Iwa and Konoha, Kusa has become their impromptu battleground. I am sure people in Kusa would be thrilled to learn that. Kumo and Kiri haven't entered the fray yet, but they were watching like a hawk eyeing its prey. Suna was itching for a chance to pounce on both Konoha and Iwa and prove to the world that they are not the weakest of the 5 great shinobi nations. Aim was entirely silent, and there were rumors of a civil war happening there. Even at the beginning, it looked like this war would cause more damage to Konoha than it was worth. But the tensions had been gradually rising and the war inevitably broke out. Initially, Konoha was reluctant to engage. The official declaration of war was just that. No offenses were undertaken by Konoha immediately. But shinobi were dispatched to the front lines soon after the announcement just in case if Iwa pushed the offense. But for those living in Konoha, the change was only minimal in the beginning. As always with war, foreign goods were the first to be affected by it. Fewer merchants were daring to trade cross-country, and no foreign merchant was allowed into Konoha. There was a mild stress in the streets, and from my favorite spot to overlook the village I could see the strain in relations that were beginning to form. Strangers were given a wide breadth, and distrust was in the air, coloring the streets with its nasty scent. But life went on normally for me. Fujita-kun, the fangirl, swooned as my chakra sense registered Fujita Uchiha nailing all the targets in the Bukenjutsu class. I was keeping track of things as I idly lazed around as one of the onlookers as my classmates made a show of throwing weapons. Ayako-sensei was overseeing the class with a critical eye. I wondered why the teachers allowed to the existence of fangirls, considering that they were teaching people how to kill. Sure, attraction and infatuation are common occurrences at this age. But I felt that the teachers must take a firm hand when it comes to over-the-top stuff like this. After all, there was a war approaching fast, and this attitude would only get them killed when they stepped onto the battlefield. Not to mention the higher decibels in which the fangirls were swooning over. It was beginning to hurt my ears, and I had 6 months to get used to this. I sighed, wondering once more how ed up the Narutoverse was. Killing is a legalized occupation. Kunoichis were taught seduction and assassination techniques at the tender age of 9 or so, and are even encouraged to pursue it as a viable career option. There was a clear social divide between shinobis and civilians that was akin to a caste system or something. Above all, child soldiers, I still couldn't wrap it around my head, even though I am now one of them. But it is not as if this world was entirely gloomy. There were things like chakra and the abilities to bend the will of nature and stuff that had going for this world. I wondered if I would be able to carry around weapons in broad daylight like I am doing now in my old world. PFF'd. The first thing I will get for that is a prison sentence there. I spun the kunai in my hand in a familiar way and looked over at Hiromi Hyuga to see how he was taking the Uchihas showing off. His face was carefully neutral and he had a disinterested air about him. Hiromi Hyuga was a main branch member of the Hyuga clan. And needless to say, Hiromi Hyuga was a taijutsu beast. While he would give me serious contention at this stage, I would most probably need to undo the seals on my chakra weights to beat him. Fujita Uchiha and Hiromi Hyuga were now locked in a one-on-one rivalry. After Hiromi beat the crap out of Fujita, Fujita has taken showcasing his bukenjutsu skills to the class with a newfound glee when he realized Hiromi was not as good in bukenjutsu. While Hiromi had a stranglehold on taijutsu rankings, Fujita trumped him in bukenjutsu. While these two were unrelated on the surface, the undercurrent was far different. A shinobi needs all these skills on the battlefield, and the Uchiha has started to remind Hiromi that if it was a real battle, he would have won since he knew far more than the Hyuga when it comes to combat. After every beat down from Hiromi, Fujita would say that Hiromi was lucky it was taijutsu alone, if not, he would be a ball of ashes on the ground now. While what Fujita said was indeed right, I couldn't honestly agree with him wholeheartedly. You see, knowing different skills are well and good. But, unless one knows how to apply them properly on the field, there is no use in that. Fujita might have an edge in bukenjutsu, but I am sure the Hyuga could easily defend himself with his gentle fist. And as far as the grand fireball jutsu went, Hyuga could simply escape it until Fujita's chakra ran low and he reverted to taijutsu. And I had a suspicion that the Hyuga had a card up his sleeve. Haterama Senju, Ayako-sensei called my name asking me to step on to the target range. I lazily spun the kunai Hiruzen had gifted me for my academy entrance and put it back into my pouch before stepping forward to pick up the set of blunted kunai that we were supposed to use in the class. I stepped into the target range and let them fly one after the other. Bukenjutsu was one class that I didn't need to hold back to avoid attention. While my throwing skills with kunai and shuriken were average, when it came to Senbon I absolutely sucked. 6 out of 10 kunai embedded in the target, none were in the bull's eye, and 4 of them grazed the board but didn't manage to stick on the target. I looked up to find a look of disappointment etched across Ayako-sensei's face. I didn't bother to think about it much and retrieved the set of shuriken I was supposed to use next. With a flick of my wrist, I sent the first shuriken on its way. I loved throwing shuriken. I don't know whether it is the unfamiliarity of the weapon or shape of it or something else entirely, throwing shuriken was fun. I had never touched something like shuriken in my old world, and seeing it rotate through the air and stick to the target not in the bull's eye was fun to watch. In shuriken, I landed 5 hits, 3 misses, 1 grazing the target and 1 going so far away from the target board that the sensei even refused to count as a miss. Overall, it was a decent performance if I have to say myself. I still had some instinctive desire to keep the weapons close instead of throwing them away, and I have to say it was hard to get over. Ayako-sensei was not impressed, however. He knew I am abysmal at Senbon, and from the look of disinterest he was sporting, I think he didn't even want to watch me try. I picked up the thin needles of death and wondered how something so small could kill someone at a distance. It would surely be a terror in close range since its design made it hard to see and on account of how sharp it was. But, I can't exactly see its application in long range even when I knew how deadly these things could be. I let them fly, and as always none of my Senbon hit the board. Pathetic, Fujita Uchiha drawled from the ground as I went forward to collect the weapons I had thrown. I can't imagine how Senjus like him used to be our foremost rivals before the village was formed. Kayoma Uchiha, the number 1 lackey of Fujita Uchiha, whispered in a voice that was loud enough for the entire class to hear. I sighed inwardly as I picked up my weapons. Initially, Ayako-sensei tried to moderate the barbs and scathing comments that came my way from the Uchihas, as he knew how serious a small altercation between Senjus and Uchihas can become. But, when he realized that I was not responding to those barbs and was simply walking away, he stopped doing it. Unfortunately, to the Uchihas and the rest of the class, it was as if he had given tacit permission now. While no one else dared to comment on my family owing to the fact that it was the famed Senju line, the Uchihas were an entirely different matter. I finished fetching the blunted weapons I had thrown and deposited them back to Sensei as he called out the next member of the class. The distasteful glare I was getting from the Uchihas was becoming to irritate me a little these days. Still, I refrained from taking offense as I knew it had far-reaching consequences. After all, I am the one who is mature here. No, no, no. This is wrong, Kushina said, landing a bonk on my head. Kushina usually dropped by once or twice a month to review my progress in Fuinjutsu whenever her schedule allowed. We were currently reviewing one of the tasks she had assigned to me, and from the looks of it, it looks like I have made a huge mistake. But, it is how this was shown in the notes you gave me, I scowled at her. I am telling you it is wrong. Kushina's eyes narrowed. And who is the sensei here? You are, I replied meekly. That's right. I am your sensei and you need to show proper respect to me. If I say it's wrong, Kushina stated regally before calming down. She snatched the notebook out of my hands and started viewing it with a critical eye. And I watched her face turn stony, and let me tell you one thing, if she made that face, nothing good came out of it, at least for me. I inwardly whimpered, wondering what I had done now to make Kushina mad. Hato-kun, she began softly, causing me to involuntarily let out a shudder. How did you get this notebook? It was with the list of notes you gave me last month, I hedged. Actually, I sneaked the notebook from Kushina when she last visited, since most of her reading materials were boring. I merely wanted to see what she was working on, but the notebook turned out to be an experimental handbook, confusing me even further. But, I did learn a few things out of it though. Hato-kun, are you sure I gave it to you? Her voice turned even sweeter. Yeah, I think so. Where else would I have got them? I stated with a nervous laugh. Say, my possessions, Kushina smiled with her eyes closed, and it caused the hair on my arms to rise up in alarm. Heeding the advice of my gut, I bolted out of the room, trying to reach safety behind Bawako, who was in the garden. At least I tried. Before I could reach the door, Kushina's chakra chain yanked me down and hung me upside down. I watched Kushina sedately walk towards me with a sadistic smile on her face. And I will admit that it scared the shit out of me. You runt, Kushina stated happily, do you know how much grief you caused me? I gulped. She brandished the notebook in my face. This notebook belongs to Minato-kun. And he has been angry with me for the last month for misplacing his Fuinjutsu notebook. Now, I find it in your possession out of all the places. Ah crap, I had made her boyfriend mad at her. You know, he refused to buy me ramen because of this, she said sweetly, and all I could do was gulp in return. Oh dear, this is turning out to be worse as each second passes. Kushina was obsessed with ramen. Not only have I strained her relationship with Minato, but I have also stood between Kushina and ramen. And in Kushina's books, the second one was a taboo. I vaguely wondered what Kushina had done to Minato after he had refused her ramen before snapping back to my own reality. It wouldn't matter what she had done to Minato if I can't escape out of this predicament. And frankly, Minato can go take a hike. All I wanted now was to escape Kushina's clutches and attain safety in Bawako's shadow. Bawako was the only one who could calm down Kushina with a look. Kushina ni, I will buy you ramen, I said, hoping the mention of ramen would blockade her wrath. Sure, it was going to scrub out all my savings, but one's well-being is far more important than savings. I think this is a justifiable expense. The crazed look in her eyes somewhat eased, but it was not gone though. I will even apologize to Minato-san, I was grasping at the edges now. I honestly don't know what I could offer to Kushina. Usually, ramen did the trick. But it looks like this time it won't be enough. Fine, but your workload will be doubled this month and you better put in your full effort. And baka, don't go poking around experimental notes. Learn to walk first before trying to run. Am I clear? Kushina asked, looking me in the eye. I nodded my head meekly. Now, let's go get that ramen, Kushina exclaimed happily as she released me from her chakra chains. I landed with a thud. I groaned and got up before dusting my dress. Soon, our Fuinjutsu notes were packed up and I saw Kushina pocket Minato's notebook with a happy smile. I felt a small amount of guilt knowing I had caused her grief. That woman needed all the happiness in the world to keep the amount of bitter hatred raging in her body. But, the thought of emptying my savings drove away all my guilty feelings. I picked up my savings and we bid bye to Bawako before hitting the streets. Soon, we found ourselves at the entrance of Ichiraku's and Kushina rushed inside paying no heed to proper etiquette. I ordered one miso ramen for myself as Kushina dug in beside me. I watched her eat away my savings unable to say anything. Watching Kushina eat ramen was one of a kind of experience. Until first 2 bowls were done, she paid no heed to others. From the third one any questions asked were answered with a mouthful of ramen. And if you are not careful, your ramen might be stolen if her order was running late. When she finished her ramen rampage, at last, I reluctantly parted with most of my savings. Luckily, I had a few left that I decided to buy some dango for. I would need all the cheering up after this debacle. The notebook didn't even contain anything worthwhile for me to endure this much grief. I sighed. Hato-kun, I have changed my mind, Kushina said as we stepped out of Ichiraku's. What? I asked with a sense of foreboding. You don't need to apologize to Minato-kun, she said, causing me to let out a sigh of relief. I think I may have some special punishments for Minato for letting this notebook come between our relationship. Now, I truly felt pity for Minato. Kushina's normal punishments were a bit over the top. If she intended to give Minato some special punishments, I shuddered to even think of it. Instead, the relief I felt was gone instantly hearing that word. Now what? Instead, I think we need to play a game. I have had some heavy food and I need a workout. How about a game of tag? Kushina beamed at me. I watched on in horror as she removed a senbon from her pouch and playfully twirled it. Kushina's version of tag was a little different. She usually made me play it when she thought I was slacking off in her lessons. While a normal tag consisted of people chasing after each other, Kushina's version of tag contained her chasing me all around the village. While that could be managed, the second variant she added to the game was the troubling aspect. She not only chased me, she also attacked me during the chase, mostly with senbons, stones and other utilitarian items lying around the village as they tend to be non-lethal. I ducked under the senbon she threw at me and raced off without pausing with my heart beating heavily. I could hear the she-demon cackling madly behind me as my chakra sense registered her pursuit. Minato can go take a hike. Fuinjutsu can go take a hike and even my savings can go take a hike. All I wanted was to escape from the woman who had incidentally eaten away my savings and was chasing me with senbons and stuff to relieve the drowsiness that was caused by overeating, and reach safety beside Bawako. I ducked under a stone she had aimed at my head and switched the directions towards the home. Seeing my intent, her next flurry of senbons blocked my path. Ah crap. This is going to be a long return to home. I switched directions midway and escaped the senbons only for a chakra-imbued empty dango packet to hit my shoulders and send me reeling. I got hit thrice by stones before I regained my stride and started escaping the projectiles she sent my way. This is not fair. That notebook didn't even have anything worth. After deeming me proficient enough to not to make a mess in social functions, Danzo has stopped to meet with me for lunch once a week. The invitation came off as a great surprise to both Bawako and me. Not wanting to offend the elder, Bawako sent me to the lunch with worry etched across her eyes. I met Danzo in his home in a formal attire that I felt uncomfortable to wear. Yet, as trained, I didn't show any discomfort in my face as we started off with tea. I am surprised Haterama-kun. I really expected you to arrive late for our meeting, Danzo said mildly sipping on his tea. I sipped my tea a little before replying, I do not arrive late if I don't intend to, Danzo-sama. Danzo eyed me for a minute or so before taking another sip from his tea. I refrained from draining my cup and sipped again. Danzo placed the cup on the table and spoke. But, the reports I get from the academy states differently, Haterama-kun. I didn't reply. Instead, I sipped my tea calmly, trying hard to mask my accelerated heartbeat. If there is one thing I have learned about Danzo from dealing with him all these years, then it is the fact that he is a certified snake. He usually lets you have enough rope so that you can hang yourself in the end. So, the best course is to stay silent and let him talk. I was disappointed to learn that you are not taking your studies seriously, Haterama-kun. I, for one, expected you to graduate from the academy within a year like that Tsukumo kid. But, he paused there to let me know that I had disappointed him a lot. His tone was mild, but the way he spoke and his inflections on certain words made me realize that his patience had run thin. Senju are the foremost protectors of this village. Even more so than any other clan. That's why 2 of the clan members have held the title of Hokage and one of their students is holding the title currently. Their unstoppable prowess is what has made this village so strong. They are the reason for us to win not 1 but 2 shinobi wars. And that is the reason I am the last Senju residing in Konoha. They are all dead because they were stupid enough to run directly to the front lines, waving there, I thought grimly. And now another war has come to our doorstep. Now there are no more Senju and one wonders whether we can win this war without them. While the village is facing a desperate struggle for its survival, the last heir to the fabled protectors of Konoha is playing kid games with Inara and amusing himself. My entire body went cold. He knows, and what do I do now? Is Harami in danger because of me? Though I panicked inwardly, the only sign of my agitation was the tremble in my fingers. And like a hawk, Danzo's eyes caught it. He smiled slowly, letting me know. I think it is time you stopped this charade and applied yourself wholeheartedly into your studies. After all, we don't want the rumors of you being a disgrace to Senju lineage become true. If it happens, I will be sorely disappointed to learn that my sensei's blood brought forth a failure. I nodded slowly and placed my cup on the table. I assure you, Danzo-sama, that I will put all my efforts into improving my performance in the academy, I replied sincerely. The lone eye devoid of bandage said to me that I better do it or the consequences would be terrible. I inwardly shivered thinking of the creep getting his hands on Harami, my only friend. If all I have to do was to drop the facade I was maintaining, then it is a small sacrifice to do to keep this creep from getting his hands on my friend. If that is all, Danzo-sama, then I will take my leave, I said politely, trying to get away from the creepy bastard as soon as I can. I asked you for lunch, Haterama-kun, Danzo stated calmly, knowing full well his warning has been duly received. I am afraid my appetite is gone, Danzo-sama. I would loathe wasting your hospitality. I smiled politely, inwardly cursing the bastard to 7 hells and beyond. I see. Very well. A budding tree always needs a small nudge here and there. I am sure you will take my advice to the heart. You may leave for now. If I am unsatisfied with your progress, I will surely let you know, he said calmly. Translation: you will sure as hell know if I am not happy with your progress. And it would most probably include that said distraction going missing or turning up dead. I nodded before getting up and making my way to the door. Just as I was about to cross the threshold, Danzo's voice stopped me. Your cousin brought disgrace to the legacy of the first Hokage, and I am sure you won't repeat your cousin's mistake, Danzo said mildly. And as usual, when someone badmouthed Tsunade, my temper went out of control for a moment and crunch. A small piece of wood from the door was residing in my hand. Danzo looked at it and raised his eyebrow. I would prefer to keep my cousin out of this, Danzo-sama, I said in a tightly controlled voice, not turning to look at him. Your cousin is a coward boy, you would. Some things are not up for debate, Danzo-sama. I interrupted him rudely, turning my head to look into his eyes as I said it. I knew my eyes were red. Like Tobirama's. It has been always like that. When I lose hold on my temper, my eyes would automatically turn red. And I think for a moment Danzo mistook me for Tobirama too, if the wide eyes on his face were any indication. I see. He narrowed his eyes. I will take my leave, Danzo-sama, I said, bowed once and turned and started walking. The piece of wood in my hand was nothing but grains by now. I knew I had acted out of order. But the man had been pushing one button after another. I don't know if he is going to retaliate for this. But I didn't care. When I returned home, Bawako took one look at my red eyes and enveloped me in a tight hug. Can you ask Hiruzen-san to let Shikaku-san know that I would like to play shogi with him tonight? I asked. She looked at me for a moment before nodding. I will tell Shikaku myself, she said, smoothing my hair. As always, it refused to bend. She let out a rueful chuckle. Go, wash and come. I will set up a lunch for you. I nodded, unable to speak anything, and rushed inside. By the time Shikaku dropped by for the shogi game, I was back to normal. Though there was a strange fear for Harumi inside, outwardly I was calm enough to hold a conversation without raising any suspicion. We set up the board and started playing. Our games usually took some time and were usually conducted in silence. While I never defeated him even once, I wasn't steamrolled either. It was well into the 10th minute of the game when I spoke, breaking the tradition. Tell me, Shikaku-san, if you want to free a child from distraction, what would you do? Shikaku didn't reply immediately. He eyed me critically once before continuing to play. He took his sweet time to reply. I waited, because I wasn't in any hurry either. After about exchanging 5 moves or so, Shikaku replied. I would take away the object of the child's distraction, Shikaku replied. We exchanged a few moves and I felt the time was right to drop the hint. What if it was a person instead of an object that is distracting the child? I asked and moved the piece, check. Shikaku's hands stopped moving and he looked up at me. I gave him a meaningful look. He didn't reply, instead he countered my move and we played on. After a long series of exchanging moves and when he was in a dominant position, Shikaku spoke. That is a serious question you are posing, Yaki. What brought this on? He asked, moving one of his pieces to entrap my bishop. I safeguarded my bishop by interposing a pawn and the game went on for a few more exchanges before I replied. I met Danzo-sama today. I paused, watching his reaction. Shikaku's eyes narrowed at the mention of Danzo's name. Some of the questions he asked made me think, I said nonchalantly as I used my king to safeguard my queen. Shikaku eyed the board and looked at me critically before nodding once in understanding. The ever-present lazy tilt of his lips was gone. Instead, a thin line replaced it. I sighed in satisfaction, and from that moment on he played to entrap my queen and I played to safeguard it at all costs. Needless to say, I lost the game quickly after that. Thanks for the game, Shikaku said before leaving me alone with the shogi board. I watched the board critically, trying to analyze what I had done wrong. The queen being safeguarded by my bishops and remaining pawn while the king was entangled by a lot of Shikaku's pawns. I let a smile blossom across my face before knocking the king over with a flick of my fingers. I sighed and closed my eyes in contemplation as I debated what to do with the situation. While safeguarding the queen was the right thing to do when Shikaku was trying to entrap it, I had heedlessly sacrificed the king without much thought. While the objective was achieved, the game was lost. It was not a viable strategy. Then, how could I play this? I can't hold my king back because the king needed to be there in the field for the queen to escape. But, was sacrificing the king the only way? I mulled over it for a few more minutes before the answer came to me. Moderation. That's it. The key in both safeguarding the queen and not losing the game was moderation. While the king needs to be in play, it doesn't mean that the king has to be heedlessly sacrificed to save the queen. Moderation was required to both save the game and queen. That way I could drag the game a little longer hoping that the board changes. Moderation, huh? Well, at least I have an alternative. When I turned 7, the milestone I had marked for the official start for the Third Shinobi War came to pass. Asuma graduated from the academy as a genin at the tender age of 9. Instead of 4 years of usual graduation, Asuma and his fellow age group were ushered out of the academy 1 year earlier. And of course, Team Minato was formed alongside them. That was the first milestone I had marked for the start of Third Shinobi War. The formation of Team Minato. Things haven't erupted into a full-blown war yet. But, the tensions were slowly but surely increasing. If I was not mistaken, within 2 years, the Kanabi Bridge incident will come to pass, which will mark the beginning of the end of the Third Shinobi War. Not only Asuma's class, the entire academy was running in a fashion that was akin to a fast-paced environment. While they didn't outright rush our education, nowadays there weren't any of our usual free periods. It was one class after the other. Even students who were performing poorly were promoted to the next level. After all, they needed some cannon fodder, right? My class, on the other hand, was soon becoming the upcoming graduating class. Even though I was full 2 years younger than Asuma, I reckoned that I would graduate from the academy in the next term. Not only me, the 30-odd students who were in my class too. As my class mostly consisted of clan kids, the teachers were dedicating more and more attention towards us than other classes. It was blatantly apparent that they were operating under immense pressure to dole out more shinobis to contribute to the war effort. Theoretical classes were gradually reduced in favor of practical sessions, and some of the kids from Yamanaka clan were already missing. My best guess regarding their absence was that they were all under some kind of apprenticeship. After all, they specialized in intelligence gathering, which needs some specialized training. The Hyugas and Uchihas in the class were acting more snobby and in the face than ever. Every spar we had was now turned into a full-blown taijutsu competition. I was secretly glad that we weren't actually allowed to use ninjutsu during spars. After all, with the state the Uchihas were in, I wouldn't guarantee them not roasting another student with their fireballs. Even the civilian kids were eagerly preparing to graduate from the academy. As I watched all this unfold, I couldn't help but feel sick at the morbid way this world was running on. While I had gradually warmed up to the idea of being a child soldier, it was sickening to see 7-year-old kids eager to go to war. It just wasn't right, and there was nothing I could do about it either. All I could do was to make myself stronger to survive the upcoming war. As for me, after my meeting with Danzo, I stopped coming to the academy late. The first day that happened, the amount of incredulous stares I got for arriving on time was just sublime. But when the practice continued for the rest of the week, even my teachers were stupefied by it. I think they never expected me to get out of the habit. I can't blame them either. I haven't changed it even after they complained to the Hokage. But, suddenly all of a sudden I started arriving on time. Needless to say, every one of my teachers was pleased. They called it progress and started complimenting me once more, too often for my liking. It's the war, one say. I mean, it's in their blood. Yeah, the war must have driven the kid to focus more. I always knew he was a good kid. Just that he needed the proper motivation. It's in his blood to protect the village. No wonder he changed. If I wasn't an adult in my mind, I would have flipped my shit with the complete 180-degree transformation in their attitude towards me. But, I didn't just improve that. I slowly started climbing the class ranks and entered the top 10 rankings. Because I knew if I didn't show proper improvement, Danzo would do something to harem me. Just coming to class on time was not going to cut it. And speaking of harem me, boy was she pissed. Oi Senju baka. Harami cornered me one day well into the third month of my attitude shift after the classes were finished. As expected, Nuki and Soyoto were idling around the corner lazily allowing us space to have our conversation. What happened? She asked softly. Initially, I had prepared to belittle her and drive her away if she confronted me. But seeing her eyeing me with concern, I hesitated. I wondered if it was the right way to deal with her. What was I thinking? Should I hurt my only friend at the academy and drive her away? Not to mention that it will be exactly the kind of reaction Danzo would want out of our encounter. Driving people away and slowly isolating myself bit by bit. He would love that, wouldn't he? After all, people who had no friends are easy to bring to the dark side. Nothing, I mumbled, trying to walk away. Oi Tem. She grabbed my hand and forcefully turned me around. I kept my head low, not wanting to meet her eyes. I idly wondered what was she feeling right now. I had betrayed our rivalry and I didn't even have the decency to let her know that I was pulling out of it. Would she be angry? If she was, then she had all the right to be. Even though I was doing it for her, she didn't know that, did she? I thought we were friends, baka, she said to me, causing me to wince. Why are you acting like this? Ah, I can't let her know either. Sure, it would be easy to tell her, but the results could be catastrophic. I didn't know what Danzo would do to her if he knew that she knows about him threatening her to motivate me. Neither did I know what Harami would do. I hoped that she would be reasonable. After all, she was a Nara, right? Right. She was also a 7-year-old kid. Unlike me. A Senju can't have friends who are pulling him down, I said, trying to bring as much venom I could bring into it. I saw Nuki and Soyoto stiffen in the background. Good. That looks like it worked out. When I moved my eyes to Harami though, she wasn't taken aback. Instead, she was scrutinizing my face as if she could catch me lying. What? I asked in annoyance. TCH, troublesome. That's why Shikaku-sama comes by our house every week, huh? She said nonchalantly. I stared at her in surprise. There it was, that scary Nara intelligence. All it took her to piece things together was me uttering something I didn't mean. She had immediately made the connection for my new behavior with Shikaku's frequent visits to her house and almost figured out the whole thing. Seriously, she is what? 7. If her reasoning skills were this sharp at this age. I shuddered inwardly, thinking about how scary she was going to be once she grows up. Who was it? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Guessing about what could have happened is one thing, guessing the identity of the perpetrator with no clues is something else. Luckily, she doesn't know who did it. It was the only saving grace of the situation. If her earlier reaction was any indication, she wouldn't stand by idly. Oh silly girl, while it is adorable to see you ready to be my knight in shining armor, you have no idea about the kind of snake you will face. TCH, troublesome. Wanna have dango? I asked as I started walking. So, you are not going to tell me, she said as we started walking towards the academy gate with Nuki and Soyoto following us at a distance. Nope. Not on my life, girly. You may be a scary Nara, but Danzo is waaaay out of your league. Even Shikaku treads carefully around that snake. If you are not going to tell me, then I will have to guess myself, she said with a finality that made me shiver. Shikaku was right. Nara women are more scarier than any other clan woman. Let's see, you are a Senju, one of the founding members of Konoha. Not to mention you personally are a relative of 2 Hokages and are under the care of the 3rd. So, that narrows the number of people who could legitimately threaten you. No one from other major clans will be interested in your improvement enough to motivate you, as the dominance of Senju clan has only recently diminished. And they will more probably prefer you as a weakling. So, I grabbed her by the arms and shook her before looking into her eyes. Don't pursue this, I said with all the seriousness I could muster. For a second, she looked as if she was scared of me. Then she slowly blinked and watched me quizzically. I didn't break my gaze. Do you understand me? I hissed, shaking her. She hastily nodded and I let out a huge huff before releasing her. Seriously, the girl was scaring me as each moment passed. The manner in which she was breaking down the situation analytically to find out who did it was plainly unnerving. But I couldn't allow her to go on that path in good conscience. She may be intelligent enough to guess the suspect eventually, but if she knew what is good for her, she will leave this matter as it is. After all, intelligence didn't automatically translate to wisdom. You are kind, she mumbled, not looking at me. What? I asked, unable to catch her words. You are kind of scary when your eyes turn red, she said, breathing out as Nuki and Soyoto caught up to us. Huh? I blinked in confusion as I looked around. For some reason, Nuki and Soyoto looked a little agitated. Then I remembered that they were trailing us at some distance and me suddenly grabbing her would have not been an ideal thing to do. Yet, the two bastards had strolled up to us without any hurry. Damn Naris and their laziness. Your eyes are red, Senju Baka, Harami huffed in annoyance. Ah, it occasionally happens, I said sheepishly, scratching the back of my head. Whatever, you told you would buy me dango as an apology. Let's get going. She walked towards the distant dango stall with her lazy Nara gait. Oi, when did I say it was an apology? I asked as I joined her as we walked towards the dango stall. TCH troublesome. Don't argue with her when it comes to dango, Soyoto told. Why? She is touchy about her dango, Nuki replied. Once, one of the clan kids. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Say whatever you want, having dango together is a bonding experience in my opinion. From that moment on, Harami and me never bothered to hide our friendship. I even got Nuki and Soyoto as sort of my extended friend circle. We usually hung out together in the academy. During the first few weeks of us not bothering to hide our friendship, we surely raised a few eyebrows. Those who remembered me and Harami scratching and clawing at each other, mostly her. Cough, cough, were surprised by our newly showcased friendship. Ayako-sensei merely raised an eyebrow after seeing us hanging out with each other. I also learned a few important things during those weeks. While the Yamanakas, Naris, and Akamichis usually had a good relation, it didn't mean every one of them was close to each other. Sure, they stayed in contact with each other, but there weren't many people who were close like Ino Shikacho. The other thing I learned was entirely about me. Due to my previous aloof attitude and overall shenanigans, my fellow students' opinion of me was that of a lazy bum who was dumber than a brick. Hell, some students even thought that my grades were average just because of my name, and the teachers were forced by the Hokage to show partiality. Overall, my image was that of a slacker with average taijutsu skills who was riding the coattails of the famous Senju name. I couldn't help but chuckle when I learned of this. After all the shenanigans I went through to make sure that the teachers didn't treat me special, some kids thought that I was shown favoritism. I have to admit that I kind of felt insulted by my overall image. Especially that riding the coattails bit. The feeling lasted for maybe a day or so, and then I chucked it into the back of my mind and went about my work in the usual way. As far as I was concerned, as long as I was being underestimated by people, I had a chance to survive this world. I am serious about that. Until I become an S-rank ninja, it is better to be underestimated. Apart from us hanging out with each other, nothing changed. Harami was still the dead last. She was even impressive enough to let the civilian kids beat her. I still hovered at the bottom spots of the top 10. Nuki and Soyoto were somewhere at the bottom of the class rankings too. They never stayed constant, so it was difficult to pin them down. Sometimes they would be in the last 5, sometimes a little higher. But I digress. I think you all get the point. When the break before the final term, in my estimate, arrived, things began to change with the war. 3 days after my vacation began, Asuma rushed into the house grinning widely. There was spring in his steps and he directly dashed into his room. When he came out, he informed me that he had been given his first C-rank mission with a happy smile. I watched Bawako's eyes tighten a little. Other than that, she masked her unease well. She acted every bit the concerned mother and made sure he had all his equipment before Asuma dashed off. I watched her stare after his departing visage for some time before moving to hug her. The way her arms tightened about me possessively let me know how worried she was. As the break progressed, I watched the village turn more somber and somber. The unseen tension that was existing in the village began to strengthen, and I watched it all from my usual gazing spot with a heavy heart. It was depressing to watch the streets that were once filled with a lively energy turn into something grim progressively. People looked at each other with distrust and the overall mood of Konoha turned a little darker. First, this is not an overpowered OCFIC. If you expect the MC to learn multiple jutsus on the get-go and thrash people who have more experience than him easily, this is not the FIC for you. Rather, if you want an MC to figure things out, earn his spurs, and try to help as many people as possible, then you can read on. Also, jutsus won't be taught to the MC willy-nilly just because he is a senju, because it would be unrealistic. Second, the MC is very much human. Hence, he will be directed by his emotions more often than not. He is prejudiced, scared, always expecting something to go wrong even though he doesn't say it outright. And he is also only a 7-year-old who recognizes how powerless he is in the grand scheme of things. So, there is selfishness, a hunger for power and determination to not go out quite if the day ever came. Third, while the MC is an adult in his mind, he has only the body of a 7-year-old. And 7-year-olds are not given that much credence in a war-torn world. And which adult wouldn't want to act as a child when given a second chance? And in a world like Naruto, where average childhood lasts only till 10, a person who knows the importance of childhood would not give it up easily. So, he frequently acts like a child. But, if you see his thought process, it is more like an adult. For example, him checking out the village's atmosphere frequently, abhorring partiality, refusing to get into childish arguments, and always conscious of how his actions would be interpreted by others. Last but not least, I would like to extend my gratitude to a few of the reviewers who brought out some valid points. One fine reviewer pointed out the absence of Asuma's brother, Konohamaru's father. I have rectified it in Chapter 18, I am currently ahead of what I have posted. Similarly, the stereotyping. I apologize for it. Harumi-chan came out as I wanted her to be portrayed. However, Nuki and Soyota unintentionally became like Shikamaru copycats. I will make efforts to not repeat such mistake in the future. I also appreciate one reviewer who noted Danzo and Hato's relationship like a surrogate son-father dynamic. The FIC is actually traveling towards it, but don't expect Hato to be chubby with Danzo. It will be a strained relationship at best. And now, it is time for a Danzo rant. One fine reviewer has been hounding me about my portrayal of Danzo. I honestly think that if I were born into Narutoverse, I would be scared of both Danzo and Orochimaru. The things they do in the timeline are really that bad. So, it is only natural that a guy who is born with the knowledge of the future be wary of them and expect worse from them in every situation. Hato has been doing the same. And I find no fault in it. And I am not going to change it too. Hope you still like the story and follow it. If it is not your cup of tea, I totally understand. And, I am actually amazed at people making judgments on Hato's capabilities when he hasn't even been in a fight. Writer's resources. So, without further ado, straight to the chapter. Asterisk 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 asterisk. You know that feeling that arises in your chest as you watch something happen, unable to prevent, either because you are too weak or too scared. I was feeling it right now. The dinner in front of me was all but forgotten as I stared at the conversation that was happening right across the dinner table in helplessness. I think my contribution to the current war can wait for a few months. At least, until the war escalates to that degree, sensei. If not, I fear we will be escalating the war far too soon. It would actually hinder us more than help us. Orochimaru said smoothly, wiping off his mouth with a tablecloth. I see. I would prefer to keep you home more too. While I won't deny that you will be a great asset to the front lines, I would at least like to keep one of my students close to me in these troubling times. After all, I am not getting any younger. Hiruzen chuckled, taking another bite off his food. Thank you, sensei, Orochimaru replied with a glint of triumph in his eyes. The glint was gone before I could even register what it was. Whether he was happy that Hiruzen wanted to keep him close or it was something else, it didn't matter to me. Orochimaru had got what he had wanted. And, in my humble opinion, that is a dangerous thing in any situation. Hiruzen finished his food and excused himself to the restroom as me, Bawako and Orochimaru continued to finish our dinner. What are you staring at, brat? Orochimaru asked in annoyance as he noticed that I was not eating my food. Don't growing kids need to intake more food to compensate for their growth? Nothing, I stuttered, hurrying to return to my food. And you wonder why he doesn't like you, Oro-kun? Bawako laughed beside me good-naturedly. Forgive me, Bawako-san, Orochimaru gifted her with a winning smile. What I wouldn't give to have an amazing child like you. Asuma is getting more and more unruly by the day, and Hato-kun is beginning to get more and more lazy by the day. None of them have your intelligence or manners. It is no wonder you are Hiruzen's favorite, Bawako praised him. Family law. The pout that appeared on my face had nothing to do with jealousy. I knew how slimy the snake bastard could act, so I wasn't surprised he had both Bawako and Hiruzen in his palm. This is just between us, Bawako winked conspiringly, and Orochimaru leaned in to hear her whisper. I think he is glad that he doesn't need to send you to the front lines. He has already lost Tsunade, and you know how Jiraiya is with roaming and women. Of the three of you, he likes you the most. I don't think I need to tell you that, do I? It is his biggest hope that you would take the Hokage mantle after him. In fact, I think he is only waiting for the war to end to relinquish the post to you. A pleased expression appeared on Orochimaru's face, which twisted my stomach. I will surely make sensei proud, Bawako-san. You don't need to worry about it, Orochimaru said humbly. Bawako actually scoffed at that. Please, he is already more proud of you than his own kids. You don't need to do anything more to earn his approval, Bawako replied, laughing. And I am too, Oro-kun. I think I saw a genuine expression on Orochimaru's face at that statement. Unlike the previous expressions, this one didn't disappear in a few moments. It stayed there even after Hiruzen returned from the restroom. I think he was gratified that both Hiruzen and Bawako were proud of him. Then again, they were like surrogate parents to him, at least at this moment. Their conversation then turned towards war and how it was beginning to affect the overall economy of Konoha. And soon I tuned them out to concentrate more on my food. While I knew that Orochimaru was a two-timing bastard, who was eventually going to be caught by Hiruzen, I can't help but feel sick at the amount of genuine affection both Hiruzen and Bawako were showing him. I wondered how Hiruzen would have felt the moment he got to know the truth about Orochimaru. The man must have been crushed. No wonder he aged so quickly. According to the timeline, there was at most 10 to 15 years from now until the events of canon began. At that start of canon, Hiruzen had looked like he was pushing 70s. Right now, he was still in his 40s and looking great in my opinion. The betrayal by Orochimaru must have affected Hiruzen more than the series had shown us for him to look that old. Knowing that Minato is going to be the next Hokage, I can't help but inwardly chuckle, thinking it was something the bastard deserved for his phony facade in front of Hiruzen and Bawako. I was almost completely lost in my glee inward when Hiruzen's word brought me back to Earth, or whatever they call it here. If you are going to remain in the village, I think it would be good for you to get a better understanding of Konoha by being with me. That way, you can build your connections and strengthen your bonds so that you can take over from me smoothly in the future. Yeah, Hiruzen did that. He always spoke to Orochimaru as if the Hokage seat was already reserved for him. I think it was one of the reasons for Orochimaru to hate Hiruzen that much after he was denied the seat. I would hate someone too, if they led me along making me believe and kindling my desires. I agree, Sensei. In fact, I am actually working on that. Danzo-sama wants my help in a new research he has been pursuing. I thought it would be good to connect with him and establish a working relationship with him. So I had agreed to help him. It is one of the reasons I want to remain in the village for. Forgive me if I have overstepped, Orochimaru said in a voice that was an amalgamation of both apology and eager interest. Oh, don't worry, there is nothing to forgive there. If Danzo willingly seeks you out, then that means he approves of your brilliance. I wouldn't be offended just because you are working with him. Hiruzen stated, waving Orochimaru's apology off. My stomach dropped upon hearing the conversation. Danzo and Orochimaru working together. That would mean nothing good. One of them was enough to give me nightmares. Two of them combined. Hell no. But, didn't they do something like that in the series? What was it? What was it? It wouldn't be anything good for sure. But, what was it? Then, it came to me. Danzo's right arm almost covered in a tree-like substance. Tree-like, that means. First Hokage's bloodline, or at least his cells. My ancestors' cells. The bastards were experimenting on my ancestors' cells. How dare they? How dare they? An unbridled rage like I had never known before rippled through me, and I was sure my eyes had turned red already. But, I had enough presence of mind to mumble something and rush towards the loo. By the time I reached my destination, I was breathing heavily from suppressed rage. I looked at my visage reflected on the mirror and blinked in surprise. My hair was standing a little straighter and my eyes, they weren't truly red. They were just extremely bloodshot. I had never seen me like this before, though I have heard it from Bawako countless times that my eyes turn red when I get upset, and I have to admit that Harami was right. I did look a little intimidating right now, even if I was just a child. Anime and manga. I exhaled loudly, trying to work the anger out of my system. The surprise of my appearance had allowed me to calm down, and it was clear to me that the rage I had felt earlier was just an instinctual reaction to the news. As I slowly calmed down, I started thinking if I could do anything about it. Sure, I could tell Hiruzen or Bawako. But the likelihood of either of them believing Orochimaru could commit a mistake was frankly nil. Unless until they saw Orochimaru experimenting with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe it. Even if they were willing to give me the benefit of doubt, that would surely be a miracle. How would I prove it to them? I mean, it is not as if Danzo and Orochimaru are going to conduct their experiments in a public place, right? Most probably it would be one of the secret hideouts Root has under their control. I had no way of knowing where they were going to do it. So, all I would do is draw the attention of the snake bastard and Danzo on me. That was something I had been avoiding all along. The concept of reincarnation alone would make Orochimaru kidnap me regardless of the consequences. And if Danzo got his hands on the knowledge of future I possess. I shudder to even think of it. Once again I was reminded of the pickle I had found myself in. While I had all these future knowledge, I could do nothing about it. On the other hand, if I hinted about it to someone, then there is no guarantee I would remain safe from Danzo or Orochimaru, or even worse, Madara and his plant minion. Wait, wasn't the plant using him? So was Madara the minion here? Huh, so confusing. I was truly, utterly helpless until I got stronger. Sure, I could have acted like an oracle, but with Danzo around that would only invite more trouble than worth. It was clear that I had no option but to swallow my anger and keep my head down until I got strong enough to hold my own against guys like Danzo and Orochimaru. S rank. That should be my priority and goal. Everything else can come after that. Until then, lay low and keep surviving these murky waters filled with alligators. Yup. That's it. Having made my decision, I began to think about it further. How do I accomplish it? I am sure it is not an overnight process. As the saying goes, anything worth would be hard to obtain. So, how do I obtain the fabled S rank? No. That's the wrong way to go about it. Now, what do I have as of now? With my current state, I am not going to become an S-rank ninja in the next few years at least. But, there is a war happening outside, and if I am not mistaken, we would be thrust into it sooner rather than later. Even though we wouldn't be sent to the front lines, we would at least be given courier missions. They would have their own troubles to combat. And in my current state, all I would accomplish is a sorry death. So, I have to improve myself if I don't want to die a nameless body in a field of corpses. I have to improve myself at least to a Chunin level if I need a chance to survive the war. With that being said, the series may have made it look that Chunin level was just a breeze away from the Genin level. But, looking at the number of Genins who are yet to make Chunin, I think it would be much harder than that. Before all that, let me catalog my own skills first. I am at a high Genin level in Taijutsu. Both my speed and strength have tremendously increased in the last few years. I have decent skills in Fuinjutsu, and apart from the 3 academy jutsus, my ninjutsu is non-existent. Seriously, how did I leave this big a glaring hole in my acumen? Considering that I am Senju, my chakra nature would be yang, and that leaves genjutsu entirely out of my reach at least now. On the other hand, I do have large chakra reserves, and strangely enough, my chakra control is impeccable. While I haven't tried tree walking and water walking yet, I have been diligently practicing the leaf exercise, and I have to say I am pretty good at it. Then, should I learn medical ninjutsu? Yeah, right. Just because I have Tsunade for a sister, it doesn't necessarily mean I have a good predisposition to medical ninjutsu. Chakra control is essential for it, but so is the knowledge of human anatomy. And that would mean that I had to spend a whole lot of effort into it. And honestly, I didn't have time for it. Within a year, I would need to hit the battlefield, and being a medical nin is like painting a big target over my back. Support teams are the first to be eliminated in an enemy attack. Sure, being a med nin gave me an excuse to hang back, but I wasn't keen on the idea of relying on someone to protect myself. And that is not a viable option if I am planning to reach S rank as soon as possible. So, that rules out medical ninjutsu. Well, that leaves either ninjutsu or taijutsu. Ninjutsu would be the best option to go, but I should also remember that I am keeping my head low. If I had any talent in that field, being a Senju, I would attract more attention to myself than I wanted. Wouldn't Danzo love to get his hands on a ninjutsu prodigy? From what I remember, most of the kids he trained in specialized in undercover operations, and he didn't have any heavy hitters to speak of. On one hand, being a heavy hitter might rule me out from Danzo's eyes. But, who knows how his mind works? What if he changes his mind? It is a decision I can't take easily. I have to balance both keeping my head low and staying above par. Looks like this is going to be one hell of a task to accomplish. If I survive through this war without getting killed by enemy nin or falling prey to Danzo or Orochimaru, it will be a huge miracle for sure. Then again, what was the possibility of me being reborn into the Narutoverse, huh? Ninjutsu it was. Even though I had reservations regarding learning ninjutsu due to Danzo, I had decided to risk it, since getting on to the battlefield without any ninjutsu in your bag of tricks was like asking to be killed. And I definitely knew where I stood on that sentiment. With that being said, a 7-year-old asking to learn ninjutsu was given much credence. I learned it the hard way. Even Bawako was really skeptical about teaching me ninjutsu. She told me to wait until I graduate and become a genin. According to her, teaching ninjutsu was the responsibility of a Junin sensei, much like teaching advanced taijutsu styles. But I was not deterred. I shifted my focus to Hiruzen. Even he was reluctant to instruct me in ninjutsu, his reason being that I need to develop my chakra coils further for him to teach any jutsu that could be considered useful. And that hypocrite was the one who approved of Kakashi graduating at the age of 6. And what is that drivel about useful jutsus? Jutsus he might consider useless may save my life for all I know. After all, he was the Hokage and I am just a mere 7-year-old. Seriously, it was really beginning to irk me. I let the matter rest for a few days before deciding to bug someone. While I understood Hiruzen's reluctance and Bawako's excuse, I can't help but feel disappointed in them. Especially Hiruzen. But, all was not lost though. After me pestering Hiruzen for weeks and weeks, my academy break was almost over. TCH, the loss of training time, Hiruzen relented to teach me 1D rank jutsu. I grudgingly accepted it. 1D rank jutsu was better than nothing in my opinion. But still, the word D rank brought a sour taste in my mouth. And that leads us to this moment. I stood before Hiruzen trying to look calm and collected, but inwardly I was giddy with joy. I had been secretly practicing tree walking technique during the academy break since it didn't look like Hiruzen was going to teach me anything. Now that Hiruzen had relented, I can't help but feel smug inside. Puppy dog eye jutsu had done its magic again. Mind you, with how my face always looks serious, it doesn't always help. I couldn't complain about my face though, after all, it made lying easier. Hiruzen eyed me critically once before pulling out a familiar piece of paper. He beckoned me closer and showed it to me. I studied the piece of chakra paper in his hand and a small smile crept across my face. Haterama-kun, this is called chakra paper. Do you know what it does? He asked in his teaching voice. I nodded, indicating that I knew exactly what it did. It identifies the elemental affinity one has in his chakra. If it turns to dust, then I will have earth affinity. It turns soggy, it will indicate water affinity. Likewise, it will crinkle for lightning, burn to ashes for fire, and split into two for wind. I see that you have been learning about it, Hiruzen said in a mild tone of disapproval, causing me to rub my head sheepishly. I will admit, my backup plan was to learn ninjutsu on my own. There is no way in hell I am graduating with just the 3 academy jutsus in my bag of tricks. Then, inject your chakra. Let's see what your affinity is, Hiruzen said, presenting the paper to me. I carefully injected my chakra into the paper and the chakra paper promptly turned soggy. So, water it is then. I exhaled the sigh I have been holding in for a long time and looked at Hiruzen in anticipation. He eyed me for a while and let out a chuckle, shaking his head in exasperation. Why did I even test? Of course, you would have sensei's affinity with water, Hiruzen said with a fond smile on his face. I, on the other hand, was not happy with my nature affinity. While I had some inkling of a doubt it would be water, I had desperately hoped to have fire, lightning, or wind. Earth and water were my least favorite nature types in the series. Come on, who wouldn't want the ability to breathe fire out of their mouth like a dragon or move as fast as lightning? Even wind nature was handy when being used in combination with taijutsu. But, water. I didn't remember any cool techniques involved with that nature. The only one I admired was the Azure Dragon technique, which needed 40 5 hand seals. I think my displeasure must have shown on my face as Hiruzen bonked me on the head. I scowled at him and he gently raised an admonishing finger that made me feel a little guilty. Tell me, Haterama-kun, why are you unhappy? After all, you have received your grandfather's famed nature affinity, Hiruzen asked, sounding genuinely curious. Water is not cool, I mumbled, and when he prompted me to speak louder, I repeated the statement with a frown on my face. TCH, the younger generation is so disillusioned. Listen well. Water may not look as flashy as some other nature transformations, but it is also one of the most versatile nature affinities that one can acquire. It allows one to transform both its shape and state, unlike other nature releases. It can also be combined with both lightning and wind to augment the damage it causes. And as long as your chakra is strong enough, you would have no worries while battling fire release users. But as with every other nature release techniques, water release techniques have their own deterrent in the form of earth release. Unless until you run into a competent earth release user, you can still hold your own. But you are not up to that level yet. Your grandfather was hailed as the strongest water release user. You have a long way to go if you wish to surpass him. I took in the information dutifully. While most of the points were known to me already, some of them were new information too. Especially the part where he mentioned that I can change both the shape and state of water got me thinking. As I thought about it more and more, a vague sense of hope formed within me. It is true that I would have preferred some flashy nature transformation, but now that I am stuck with water, all I could do is to put in my best efforts to master it. I have seen countless animes where water was one of the main powers used by people, and I can use those theories behind it to create my own jutsus. Also, it is not as if I am stuck with water for life, right? If I was not wrong, then I needed to master another elemental nature apart from water to become a Junin. Hiruzen let me mull over for a few more minutes before he cleared his throat to bring my attention to him. Well, I am primarily a fire release user and my knowledge of water release is sporadic at best, he said in a light tone. As if I would believe it. The man was referred to as the professor in the shinobi world. If his knowledge is sporadic, then I would eat a wooden kunai for lunch for a week. Still, he continued in the same tone, I do know a few water release techniques. My eyes visibly brightened at that admission. But you are not yet ready to learn them yet. As per our agreement earlier, I will teach you 1D rank water jutsu. If you can master it within a week, then I will reward you with AC rank jutsu. If not, then you will need to wait for your Junin sensei to teach you more water release techniques. Ah, carrot and the stick, huh? By hanging AC rank jutsu in my face, he was motivating me to master the technique within a week. And if I don't, I will have to wait till graduation to learn a new technique. Clever. I will try to master the jutsu within a week, Hiruzen-san, I replied brightly, causing him to smile. No, I didn't overcommit. Regardless of what technique Hiruzen taught me, I am going to take my time to master it. As for C-rank jutsus, I can always acquire them from the library, now that I know my nature affinity. If my training with Fuinjutsu had taught me anything, it is the fact that I should not rush while learning the basics. In fact, my Fuinjutsu training with Kushina has given some much needed insight into this world of chakra. Basics are very important. Take this water release technique for example. A basic jutsu will give me more insight into manipulating water nature chakra in its base form. Because D-rank jutsus are just that. So, once I master manipulating water chakra in its base form, I could always branch out on my own. I just hoped Hiruzen would teach me something that contains manipulation of water-natured chakra. If not, then my plan is doomed. The jutsu I will be teaching you is a famous one. In fact, I think it will be perfect for you. It can be either used to attack or evade depending on the situation. The name of the jutsu is the Hidden Mist Jutsu. It originates from Kurigakure and is one of their signature jutsus. The seals for the jutsu are either the seal of confrontation or ox followed by ram seal. The first method can be used to manipulate the water outside of your body into the mist using your water chakra. The second method is used to shape your chakra into mist and blow it out through your mouth. Like this. Hiruzen slowly performed an ox seal and followed it with a ram seal and blew out a cloud of mist that promptly engulfed both of us. Within moments my visibility was lessened and I could barely see my surroundings. I had no clue as to where Hiruzen was, at least visually. My chakra sense told me he was moving around me to come from behind. I knew for a fact that he didn't bother to conceal his chakra, thinking I would not notice him. It once again reaffirmed my belief of keeping my sensing capabilities a secret. And it also made me realize that this technique was perfect for me. I can hide in the mist and move about people using my sensing abilities. You can use this technique to attack your enemy using a surprise attack, or even use this as a cover to retreat from a battle, he voiced from behind, and I faked my reaction to show surprise on my face in regards to his new location. It is highly useful if you want to escape from a dire situation. I nodded empathetically. He was right. While this jutsu wasn't flashy or awe-inspiring, it perfectly suited to be a good supplement for my sensing abilities. If anything, Zabuza has shown me how scary one person can be if he had the right tools to operate in this mist. I immediately made the decision to truly master this technique and not just half-ass it. I will let you practice it, and once you have mastered the technique, let me know, Hiruzen stated calmly with a twinkle in his eyes before taking his leave. I watched him depart with a newfound determination. After all, this was my first step in becoming an S-rank shinobi, and I was not going to waste it. Now, how did those seals go? Hiruzen had sabotaged me purposefully. I was sure of that. That man didn't do things like this unintentionally. Did I pester him too much? Was he so annoyed with me to do something like this? I didn't know for sure. Or is he waiting to see how long it takes for me to realize the problem and come crawling back to him? Like hell, I am going to do that. Whatever, I am going to figure this out on my own. And I can't wait to see Hiruzen's face when he realizes I had succeeded despite him rigging the board. I scowled at everything in my vicinity as I tried to comprehend the concept. You see, Hiruzen did teach me the jutsu. He showed the hand seals and even gave an explanation about what it does and its advantages. But what the old geezer had conveniently failed to do was to tell me how to do it. Seriously, how can he forget that? I am damn sure he did it purposefully. While I had the knowledge of the hand seals required for the jutsu and had even experienced the jutsu in real, what I didn't have was the knowledge on how to convert my chakra into water-natured chakra. And the troublesome old geezer had conveniently failed to tell me how to do it. A day had already passed since Hiruzen had taught me the hidden mist jutsu, and I was nowhere near to even scratching its surface. I only had 6 days left to master the jutsu, and if my hunch is correct, Hiruzen had been banking on this to escape from teaching me the C-rank jutsu. Say if I approached him asking how to convert my chakra into water-natured chakra, I am pretty sure I was not supposed to know this little bit of detail, then it would be easy for Hiruzen to refuse to teach me the C-rank jutsu even if I mastered it in a week, saying I had sought his help. It was a cleverly laid out plan, and I had walked into it blindly. As Kakashi from the series would say, I had failed to see underneath the underneath. I had also noted something about my character in this life. The Senju blood in me was too prideful for my own good. Ninjutsu was supposed to be my clan's forte, and it rankled me to even ask for help regarding it. Damn it, I was a Senju and my clan's pride was on the line here. I am not going to be the one Senju who can't figure out things on his own. My grandfather had created countless ninjutsus on his own, and all I had to do was to figure out how to change normal chakra into water-natured chakra. And I would be a piss-poor successor if can't even do that. Dream on, old geezer, I am not going to come to you for help. I am going to figure this shit out by myself. Coming back to the matter on hand, or even better, on my chakra, how do I accomplish it? Well, let's see. You made lightning chakra by increasing the vibrations of the chakra thrumming through your body. On the other hand, you made wind chakra by focusing it into a sharp blade. Then, in that vein, how do I transform my chakra into water nature? I thought about it long and hard, but even when the second day was coming to an end, I was nowhere near to figuring things out. It frustrated me a lot. It was supposed to be a simple D-rank jutsu and I am already facing problems with it. Is ninjutsu even the right path for me? What if I wasn't suited for ninjutsu? What if I can't become an S-rank ninja? No, no, no. Scarp that thought. That will only make me wallow in self-pity. I need to get my shit together and figure this shit out. In a bout of frustration, I redid the hand seals for the jutsu in what amounted to be the 100th time by now. I have done it so many times by now that I didn't even need to concentrate much to do it. As I did the seals, something wiggled, I don't have a better description for it, inside my body. It was something I hadn't noticed prior to this. As I performed the ram seal, the chakra that molded in me seemed to have a sense of finality. It was as if it was signifying the end or something. I wouldn't have even noticed it if not for my developed chakra sensing abilities. And a vague memory of Kushina telling me that ram seal is often used in sealing techniques during one fuinjutsu lesson surfaced. Startled by the sudden development and the subsequent memory, I sat down and started feeling out the chakra in my body as I performed each of the 12 basic hand seals. It was slow going, and if not for my earlier familiarity with meditation when unlocking my chakra, I would have lost concentration far sooner. As I performed and formed an idea of what each seal did, I began to notice a few things. For example, when I performed the snake seal, I had a sense of slipperiness go through my chakra. The tiger, on the other hand, gave me a sense of agitation. The dragon seal gave me a sense of power and the bird seal gave me a sense of sharpness. The ox seal was a direct opposite to ram seal. It gave me the sense of something breaking past the dam. The rat seal gave me a murky feeling which was akin to being in shadows. As for the hare, boar, horse and monkey seals, I couldn't exactly identify the feeling the molded chakra gave me. But when I performed the dog seal, I felt a feeling of softness pass through me. I repeated it multiple times just to experience that feeling. It was so soothing that I even forgot what I was doing for a minute. My hyperactive chakra sense mellowed out and I felt as if I was being cleansed of all the tension. It reminded me of those raindrops. My eyes flew open at that information. This was something I could work with. Soon, I tried to attain that soothing feeling without performing the hand seal. It was hard going, but regardless it worked, at least partially. After practicing molding chakra into a soothing manner for a long time, I took a gamble and breathed out as I used the soothing chakra feel. The resulting breath was chillier than my normal breath. The sense of accomplishment that followed was something indescribable. With a new goal in mind, I wrapped up the training for the day and went to relax. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The remaining 5 days passed by in a blur. In the end, Hiruzen won. The first bitter feeling of defeat I felt was when looking at Hiruzen's smug smile. As he stood there letting out an air of fake disappointment, I merely scowled at him and returned to my meditation. Forget mastering the jutsu, I couldn't even perform the jutsu. But apart from the brief feeling of defeat I felt when looking at Hiruzen's smug face, I wasn't deterred by the complexity of the problem. In fact, it only encouraged me. I vowed to figure out how to transform normal chakra into water nature chakra on my own and devoted my time to it wholeheartedly. So what if I couldn't master a measly D-rank jutsu within a week? Did it matter that I wasn't a prodigy like Orochimaru? Did it matter that Hiruzen had rigged the board? No, none of it mattered. After all, I was a Senju and we did things in our own way. If anything, I had a whole family of hard-headed idiots to derive inspiration from. And as far as Hiruzen was concerned, we are not done yet. Oh no, old man, you and me, we are not done. Above all, I will be damned if this measly D-rank jutsu was going to keep me from becoming an S-class ninja. And strangely enough, she didn't ask me what I was training in either. Either my stubborn desire to figure things out on my own had convinced her that it was one of those things that I was pig-headed about, or she thought that I had lost my interest in jutsus after failing to perform a D-rank jutsu. Either way, I didn't care about that much. My mind was fully focused on figuring out the method to transform normal chakra into water-natured chakra. And I had indeed picked a perfect training spot for it, if I have to say myself. The Naka River was an ideal place for me to train. It was isolated, had an abundance of water, and rarely saw anyone near it. I had identified this small hidey hole of my own while going on one of my morning laps. As luck would have it, the place had a natural source of water flowing just near it. It was just perfectly situated within the village borders while also receiving only a few visitors, the reason being it very close to the Uchiha's famous Naka shrine. Hell, even the Uchihas avoided the place in respect. Immediately, I knew that this would be the perfect spot for me to figure things out. No one would expect a Senju to hang around the Uchiha section of Konoha. The fact that it was a river, which suited my affinity tremendously, was just the icing on the cake. I exhaled heavily, breaking out of the water as I struggled to swim against the current. I slowly swam to the shore, shivering with the wet cloths, and threw myself on the bank with a huge sigh. Repeatedly drowning in water was not a cool thing to experience. If this continued, I might even begin to hate water completely. And wouldn't it be ironic? A water-natured shinobi hating water. I chuckled at the thought and reviewed my training to grasp what I had done wrong. As you might have guessed, I am training in the art of water walking. Sure, it was a chakra control exercise and not ninjutsu, which might have defeated the entire purpose if not for the fact that it allowed me to be in touch with my element. For the past few weeks, my progress had come to a standstill as I banged my head against the chakra nature problem. I had only been practicing my taijutsu forms and keeping up my shape with my morning runs. And ever since I went back to attending the academy, I couldn't spend as much time as I would have liked on the chakra nature problem either. It began to frustrate me a lot since I felt that this was the time I need to progress further and further and not stay standstill in a place. And the news trickling into the village regarding the ongoing war didn't help me either. So, I had taken up the habit of strolling through Konoha to take my mind off things. It worked, partially. Anime and manga. As I was roaming around the village one day, mulling things over in my head and trying to figure out how to change my chakra nature, suddenly a light bulb went on in my head. In regards to chakra control, I had already mastered the art of tree walking. And the next logical step in that direction was water walking. That meant spending a lot of time near a flowing water body. And guess what? It conveniently aligned with my intentions of knowing my own chakra nature a little better. To any onlookers, it would look as if I had gotten tired over the chakra nature and had turned my attention elsewhere. But, on the other hand, I could try to work on two things at once. Overjoyed by own cleverness, I soon began to search for a perfect spot to implement my plan. And thus, I came across this isolated patch of land where the river flowed near to the Naka shrine on one of my morning runs. And I wasn't stupid about it either. Picking a spot in the Uchiha-controlled area would spell disaster. I was not that unaware of how things stood. Regardless of whatever is happening, I am a Senju and the chances of Uchihas being gracious enough to accommodate me were slim to none. While there were several such spots along the Naka River, I chose this one because it wasn't officially a land belonging to any of the clans. The Naka shrine was located at the edge of Uchiha lands and a little distance away from it my hidey hole existed. Enough self-patting about my cleverness, now it is time to concentrate on my training. Initially, I had too much difficulty in controlling the output of my chakra to my souls. While I knew the basic principle behind it and had even seen how it is done, I soon understood that watching something and performing something is altogether different. For starters, the difference between tree walking and water walking lay in the fact that the two surfaces were entirely different. The tree boasted a steady surface with a constant amount of thickness to it. On the other hand, the surface of the water was nowhere steady and the thickness was almost non-existent. Don't get me wrong, there was some surface tension from the water. But it was so minute that it didn't even matter. The best analogy I could give regarding the comparison is, tree walking is like sticking to a surface and water walking is like skirting on thin ice. In fact, a better example would be to say mixing oil and water. They both touch and yet don't mingle. One has to figure out how to touch the water without breaking the surface tension of the water. It was a chore by itself. And that is only for starters. Moving on, the next problem arises from the fact that surface you are standing on is constantly shifting and you need to put the right amount of chakra in your souls to keep your balance. You have constantly vary the chakra you send to your souls in accordance with the shifting beneath your feet. I think you begin to get the grasp of the complexity involved in this seemingly simple activity. Hell, in the series they made it look like it was only slightly difficult. Well, let's say that you have somehow figured as this things and executed it perfectly, then I am afraid my dearies that I have some bad news. All you have done is to complete the first part. Congratulations. Now you can stand on water. But, it doesn't mean you can walk across it. Oh, silly goose. Who gave you the idea that once you can stand, you can walk? Nope. Now, the second part of the exercise is to actually walk on the water. With the constantly shifting surface and the varying surface tension beneath your feet, you have to carefully manipulate the output of the chakra you send to your souls to match it exactly so that you don't overcompensate and send back flying as you try to walk. With me so far. Good. Now comes the fun part. Actually fighting on the surface of the water. You thought this exercise had only 2 parts, huh? Whatever gave you that idea? Just imagine how many times you lose balance while fighting on the land or land harder than intended. If any of those things occur, oops, you lose your footing. And with it, you go underwater, where fishes and other aquatic life forms, who had been irritated out of their minds as they watched you dance overhead, will swarm you. Standardized and admissions tests. Sweet, isn't it? After constant practice and thanks to my innate chakra control, I am at the last stage now. While I could now stand and walk on top of the water, yay. I am freaking Jesus. I wasn't satisfied with it. It may be enough for other shinobis but not for me. Because being a water-natured shinobi, most of my justice will contain water, and it would be a real shame if I became handicapped because of my own jutsu. Don't you agree? As I reviewed my recent debacle, I noted that I tended to balance a little forward while performing the overhead throw my kata usually contained. It was an innocent enough thing that wouldn't trouble me if I was on the land. At the most, my feet would skid a little. But, here on the water, it made me lose my footing entirely. If anything good came of these debacles, it was that they were teaching all the minute mistakes I have been ignoring while on the land. Sure, it was a learning experience and I was perfecting my taijutsu and chakra control at the same time. But, what wouldn't I give to not get wet and get bitten by aquatic lifeforms? I once again went back on the water and started performing my katas slowly with pinpoint precision as I carefully kept my mind focused on the chakra output to my souls. I performed the katas in silence and the only company I had was the birds chirping away in a nearby tree. I practiced my forms on the water until the sun started setting and eventually wrapped up my training to head back to the village. Unlike other days, today a figure stood, waiting for me, on the bank. I blinked as I had failed to register the person prior to this. Inwardly, I chastised myself for letting someone get this close to me without sensing them. One more thing to add to the training, I groaned. Fugaku Uchiha was every bit the man portrayed in the series. He was tall, had telltale Uchiha hair and black eyes, and above all he had a huge stick up his ass. I had run into him a few times as the major clans of Konoha held biannual meetings. Even though the Senju only had 1 member in the village as of now, they weren't barred from entering the hall. As the lone Senju in Konoha, I had been called in for meetings occasionally when they had to discuss some important matters. I mostly boycotted it, stating my age as a reason. But, sometimes Hiruzen would drag me in with him for some important meetings. And then I would stare at the faces of various clan members arguing about stuff I had no clue about. Jolly good, isn't it? Anyways, back to the matter at hand. Fugaku had recently taken over as the head of the Uchiha clan. Ever since my first meeting with him, I have only met him twice before to this. And I have to say, the man was an emotionless freak. He rarely smiled, laughed, showed amusement or irritation or some other damn thing, you know, those things called emotions that people possess. In fact, if not for the animosity between Uchihas and Danzo, I think they both would get along well. Good evening, Uchiha-san, I greeted him as I made my way back to the bank. HN, he nodded his head in greeting. I see you have progressed your chakra control to the standard of a low chunin. It is rare to see such incredible chakra control in one so young.